Hey everyone. In this recording I'm talking to a former coworker, Jeremy. He was actually one of my instructors when I went to the advanced course of the Mountain Warfare School back in 2015. During my time working there, he ran the medical section and managed the rough terrain evacuation course. He has a ton of experience both with combat and non-combat related medicine, so I wanted to ask him some questions that I think could benefit not only other medics, but everyone that plans on walking around in mountainous areas. If you haven't already, listen to the series primer for why I'm doing these talks. Okay, so we'll start off. Can you give a brief description of your military medical career?
Yeah. I'm Jeremy Neskey, retired from the Mountain Warfare School. I retired as a Sergeant First Class. I wasn't always a medic. I was 11 Bravo first, so I joined in 96, trained for the Cold War, and moved all the way up to E6 as 11 Bravo. I functioned as a squad leader, machine gun leader, and sometimes you have those big midlife crises. I'd enjoyed medicine before that, but one of my good friends, Master Sergeant Stone, he was a good mentor of me at the mountain school. He actually got killed in Afghanistan. He was a medic, divorced, so I then went and kind of got reclassed and haven't looked back. I've really enjoyed the medicine from EMT. I've worked as a ski patroller all the way up to now I'm a practicing paramedic and a bunch of other stuff. While I was at the school, I ran the RTEC program as well as the Mountain Critical Care course and other specialized training in the prolonged field care realm for JSOC elements and other people that wanted it. I really, really enjoyed that. I'm out now, so I'm now 6 months retired as a pseudo-normal person. I work for a company that designs medical equipment for extreme environments. And that's what I do now, as well as teach for a few other places, so you'll see me around.
Nice. Yeah, I think one of my first memories of working at the mountain school is helping you with a SORT A team.
Oh,
doing
yeah.
RTEC.
That's awesome.
That's super fun.
Yeah, those are great guys.
Yeah. All right, so I listened to you on the World Extreme.
Yep. That was the medical planning?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was more on maybe not so much military, but more if you're traveling or doing expeditions. A lot of good information on there. What I'd like to talk to you about is more military based, and I think the easiest way is to give you a scenario and ask you questions about that scenario.
Cool.
So the scenario I want to talk about is you're a platoon medic. Your platoon is going to move on foot, say 6 miles from a forward operating base. Well, there's some elevation in, so from 7,000 feet to a ridge at 10,000 feet, maybe you're setting up an observation post, spending 2 nights, and then getting relieved, coming back down, and enemy contact is unlikely. So preventative medicine for an overnight in the mountains. I have heard take Viagra for altitude sickness. So
tadalafil, that's an ED med, is used to treat HAPE. It's not actually used to treat AMS. That's one of the ones people like to talk about. And it does work. The literature does say it's very good for prophylaxis for HAPE if you're HAPE susceptible. But for treating AMS, which is really what you're dealing with at these altitudes, unless you're from the real shallow end of the gene pool, it would be unnecessary at this point. Prophylaxis for this, you could play with acetazolamide, Diamox, but again, we're right around the edges of really high altitude, and there are negative consequences with all of these medications. So acetazolamide does, it functions by artificially increasing rate and depth of respirations through generalized terms, so we don't have to get into too much physiology, basically making your blood slightly more acidotic or acidic. Mm-hmm. And by doing that, you actually lose exercise capacity. So they've found at high altitude tests, 14,000 feet and higher, that it kind of evens out. So if you don't take it versus if you do, you're kind of all sucking about the same. For these lower altitudes, I would say just be uncomfortable. Have some acetazolamide as a medic. I would carry a little bit just as a treatment because you never really know, especially if this is your first exposure. And a lot of altitude illness prevention, treatment, is spending time and understanding how you and your people react, so you know. There are some consistencies. So the people will say like every trip's a different trip, which is true, but there are consistencies within the inconsistencies. So I do know that at certain points throughout it, like around 14,000 feet-ish for me, I tend to get laid out pretty hard. And I know I got to take 3 or 4 days, and then it clears up and I'm fine again. But if I know, I also have found out if I push through that 14 and get higher, I never get better. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. So first exposures, I'd bring some to treat. You could probably have some dexamethasone as well, which is standard corticosteroid for severe cases, but it might be unnecessary. Some acetazolamide. These are short. This is a pretty short mission anyways. It's 1 night. So you won't see serious effects until probably 10 to 12 hours anyways. So this one is be fit and just be a little uncomfortable, I guess.
That's always the best advice, to just be fit.
Well, like everyone forgets, living in the mountains, living out in the world is an uncomfortable event, and there's a lot of discomfort in everything we do, especially as soldiers, and especially now. If you look at current fighting going on, Ukraine, people live hard. Yeah. And in the modern world, you're going to live hard. Yeah. Because all of the fun things, the Xbox back at camp, don't exist anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So that's taking care of altitude. What about wrapping ankles and knees?
Again, if that's needed by the soldiers. So again, it's knowing your soldiers. Ankle taping does help. You get maximum stability for about 25 to 30 minutes. So that's why if you watch football or soccer especially, they're always retaping. So it does require a continual thing. So if the soldiers need it, then definitely yes, get ahead of it and know those people. Knees can be a little trickier, but again, it does add some stability if it helps, yes. I wouldn't go whole hog and just tape everyone's ankles and knees. Just know the people that need it. Yeah. Pre-taking painkillers or anything like that, I don't know. Some people will say yes, some people say no. It's kind of up in the air, so like you'll stay away from the standard NSAIDs because we are in a combat theater, so we don't want to destroy our platelets or our clotting effect, so we'll be using some stuff that's a little more powerful. But I don't know. At this point, I'm 45. I have arthritis in both knees. I take it every day so I can move, and I would continue doing so. Yeah. But putting people on a regimen of it as such, you just get. My personal feeling on medications is give them when needed, not as a this could be a thing, because every medication is a poison. It's all dosing, so there's always downstream effects, whether it's liver damage, kidney damage, you name it. We already are hard on our bodies, so we don't need to make it worse. Yeah. And then of course, food and water intake, making sure that people are eating and drinking right prior to. Yeah, so like one of the big ones that gets missed a lot on a lot of this stuff, and I saw it working at the mountain school for all that time, is it's not water on the movement, because that doesn't do you any good. It's the 2 or 3 days leading up to it. Like you can't hydrate on a movement. Like you can try to stave it off, but it's like trying to drive your car and keep the tank full. Like humans sweat to cool. We burn water. It's one of the building blocks of our body and our planet. Yeah. We lose it, then regain it, and we lose it, we gain it. We're always kind of going up and down. But it's the frequency of those peaks and valleys, or the depth, right? Frequency would be length. That's where we start to see the problem. So if you're pounding Rippets and caffeine and going into it dehydrated, you're not going to get better. So like a good hydration plan leading up to, so 3 days, so roughly if you become depleted, so 3 to 5% of your body weight, it's going to take about 3 days-ish of drinking water and some electrolyte solution, that kind of thing, to get you back there. So just being on a good hydration plan ahead of time will save a lot of pain for everyone on the movement. Like again, this is a short movement. We're not talking weeks, right? It's 6 miles, so 6 hours max, probably. It's not a huge elevation gain, so it shouldn't be that bad, but it could be. So like that good hydration plan on the front end, making sure people are eating, and make sure they have the food that they're going to eat, right? Not just bringing the MRE. Bring the parts you're going to eat, because as you get up in altitude again, like your stomach, you become, you don't like to eat. Your stomach, it's hard to eat, a lot of reasons. So bring food you're going to eat. Right. But yeah, the good pre-hydration would be my big one. Water's heavy. So yeah, 8 pounds a gallon. So that adds up quick.
Yep. So a typical medic would know what to bring for a movement like this on flat ground. At least you would think a typical 6-day whiskey that's been through medic school. But do you ever start ditching equipment based on how difficult the movement is? And do you have any tricks to lighten the load?
So one of the big things, this is kind of something I've learned training and doing this stuff, is medics we shouldn't be looking on the bright side of things, right? My job really is looking at things as like, I'm a Debbie Downer. What's the worst that can happen? And I prepare for that. And that becomes kind of that's perpetuated to like the medical career field and whatever you want to call it. You know, the whole like, what is it? 2 is 1, 1 is none thing. Yeah, that's stupid. All right, all of that is weight. So look at what you as a medic can realistically treat. Look at what your soldiers are carrying and tailor your load accordingly. So every soldier has an IFAC. You know, every soldier has minimum 2 tourniquets on them, has a minimum 1 NCD, 2 sets of chest seals, wound packing, whatever, right? You know what they have. So you know they're relatively good. You carrying 8 sets more, well, it may make you feel good. We have to look at the hard truth of it. If you're taking 8 casualties, or if you're burning through all of that, you're not going to be able to do that, right? Like there's only so much you can do. So you have to balance that load versus likely outcomes. So like every mission, when I'd go out, I would look at what we're doing and I would pack the bag. And I had the opportunity to work a wide swath from security, riding in the back of a truck, to getting inserted by helicopter and beyond OPs, to everything. So every time I'd go out, I'd be like, what am I likely to do? What am I likely to see? How many people am I likely to have to take care of? Tailor the load for that. I wouldn't leave things behind, because again, I'm a medic. Like, I'm lucky because I was a rifleman before, but a lot of medics are just, without their aid bag, they're just a shitty rifleman. And you need to realize that. Like, you're there to do medicine. So if you're leaving important medical things behind because you're too fat or too slow to keep up, you are failing in your mission. Like, your job is to do medicine. You're supposed to be there to shoot a rifle and do all the fun stuff that was really fun as an infantry guy. But the only reason they keep you around is to do the medical part. They have 39 other people in the 40-person platoon that can blow shit up, that can shoot the javelin, they can shoot the AT-4s, they can do all of the other things. They don't need you or the medic for that. So you have to understand that your main purpose for being there is because of that aid bag, and you have to balance that. So I'm not saying don't overpack. And again, unfortunately, this is a kind of burnt hand method. You're gonna come undershot a little bit at times. You're more likely overshoot on that, and you just pay with pain because it hurts to carry it. Yeah. But just look at that and think about it. If you have a good PA, talk to them. Have conversations with like, hey, what are we doing? If it's a direct action mission where you're air insert, hiking 5 miles, you're going to hit a compound where you know you're doing violence, that's different than sitting on an OP. So you should tailor that load so you can move effectively, right? Because movement's your best safety. Yeah. Sorry, I got a little ranty there.
No, it's good. Okay, so do you encourage squad leaders to carry any supplemental medical gear? For example, when I was a squad leader on the line, I would carry around extra ibuprofen, electrolyte powders, moleskin, medical tape, things that I wouldn't want my guys to bother the medic with. I know you said a little bit earlier, yeah, everyone carries an IFAC, everyone carries 2 tourniquets. Is there anything that you would want the squad leader to carry extra of?
I encourage most soldiers to carry the feel-good meds, right? It's again, like my aid bags for emergencies. Yep. Like, you come see me at sick call and I'll give you that all day long, but I have a limited amount I can carry. If you know you need ibuprofen every day to move, carry your own. right? So if you have heartburn and you know you take a med for that, bring that. So you should have some stuff to take care of yourself. And I encourage that. And I'd build little kits for a while when I was super into it. Just be like, hey, make sure you have some moleskin. Make sure you take care of this stuff. Because again, that spreads the load out across the force. And again, they don't have to bother you, right? They still will, because they won't. But you know, at least you can try. There's like specific trauma stuff. I'll have people carry things they need to, that they know how to use. Right? Because one of my biggest fears as a medic was I'm the one getting hurt and I'm like lapsing into unconsciousness, watching people root around in my aid bag, knowing that there's more stuff in there that can kill me in the wrong hands than help me. So I really make sure that like the people that are carrying a thing, if it's outside of like the IFAC Combat Lifesaver, they actually know how to use it. Like, because you might not be the thing. So if it's super important, narcotics, advanced airway stuff, any medications, yeah, I carry all of that. Because again, that's why I'm here. The squad leader's not there for that. Like if the squad leader's a combat lifesaver and a paramedic on the outside and wants to carry some stuff, great. I know he has a set of skills that he can use it. But I'm not going to push stuff on him because they all got their own stuff, right? Like carrying a little extra here, there is nice, but I won't push out crazy amounts of stuff.
Okay. So, say we step off, you know, what do you check, or do you check anything mid-mission? Like, I know when I was in a hiking club in college, we would make people take their boots off to check their feet. Do you check anything? Do you check, how would you even check for altitude related effects?
So altitude related effects can be tough, especially mid-movement. Unless it's a long one, like again, like 12 hours, 16 hours, like a standard mountaineering day of approach. I don't really take boots off mid-movement because again, like we're opening up, or to lose a boot, like shit like that happens. So like if they're on their feet, they're good. I'll ask, like, hey, do you have any blisters? And again, most of the time they say no. But if you ask every time, eventually they're going to tell you the truth. And if you're a good line medic and it's your platoon, you should have that rapport that they'll tell you the truth. And then I fix things as needed. But I don't often do the whole everyone stop and take your boots off and let me see your feet. That's like basic training shit. If they're a soldier and they're not bright enough to tell you their feet are hurt, I don't know. Like, come on, man. Like, but we're asking a lot of people nowadays, and they should be able to say, hey, I think I'm getting a blister. Can you help me? You know, student-wise, sometimes I'll ask. If people look like they're struggling because it's super hot, make sure they're drinking water because people won't drink water. Younger soldiers, maybe check their bags, make sure they didn't pack stupid stuff. Their squad leader's supposed to, but end of the day, it becomes my problem. If they go down because of heat stroke, it's not really the squad leader's problem. Right. So I tend to take a little more ownership of things that are going to affect my day-to-day on a patrol. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. I don't do it. End of the day, I will. Mm-hmm. You know, we get into camp, everyone settles in, you're coming off cycle. You know, you're coming, whatever. Like, hey, get your boots off if you can. Let me see them. Change your socks, whatever. But mid-mission, probably not. Unless it's really, really necessary.
Okay. So say everything goes right. We do everything right as the medic for preparation. We get to the ridge, no injuries, spend the night, get relieved, and we step off. And, you know, things happen. Someone, say, tears an ACL, can't walk down. What are the differences in evacuating a casualty in the mountains versus, say, on flat ground?
So I guess this is one of those ones that's super, super common. These are mobility kills, like ankles, knees, super, super, super common. It doesn't really matter how they got there, but this person, like, they step on any personnel mine, it doesn't change anything. Like, oh, it's a little more dramatic, but same things. Like, we're in the same space. This is mobility kill, and it greatly affects everyone, right? So where the mountain evac versus flat comes into this, actually, let's step it back. So one of the big things is to understand in mission planning what your triage levels are, right? So by air evac, because that's probably what you're going to be calling, this could potentially be convenience. So they'll get you if they can, right? If they're flying around, then, you know, maybe for some place where it's super permissive environment, so it's not, you know, you're carrying guns for show, maybe they'd come get you. But again, there's mountain weather, right? So you got to understand the realities of your evac. The pilots will push it for a critical injury, but they're not going to risk a helicopter and a crew of 5 for someone with a twisted ankle or a bum knee. Like, sorry, man. Just not going to do it. And then you have to look at the tactical side of it. Do we want to compromise our mission? Because if you're on an OP, your whole point is to be kind of sneaky and hiding. And you don't really hide when a Black Hawk comes in and hovers over you, right? Like, you've kind of given up the goat at that point. So with this, we then have to accept the fact that we need to move to either remain overnight or remain over day, depending on how we're doing it, defendable position, or a evac. And having that pre-planned, so knowing where those things are will smooth out your process, right? So assuming with this particular scenario, we must have had some sort of insertion platform, and knowing where they can get versus where they like to go. So those are two different things. Like, it's a big, nice dirt road they can drive your giant ass JLTV on, versus there's some trails that they can kind of get up, can cut miles off of it. So understanding the capabilities of your extraction platforms will definitely help here. That's normally not something that happens in flat ground or what normal environments. So understanding what the mountain roads can handle, and always endeavoring to go down. Down is way easier. I won't choose up unless, like, I know there's a vehicle at the top, because it's just the amount of effort and time it takes to raise is just so much harder than going down. But again, like, you have one casualty, and one can turn into many in these scenarios. So it's important to make sure that this guy's emergency doesn't become everyone's. Like, at a certain point, you just got to accept the fact that this is what we're doing for the next 12 hours, and set pretty low standards of time, because people are going to want to push this. They're going to ask the medic, how long is this going to take? I straight lie, 12 hours. Like, if you're if you're under it, damn, you nailed it. But if they're already expecting 12, so it can't get much worse. So having, like, that realistic look at the time schedule, so people don't start to rush, and then just controlling the whole process. You know, if you don't know how to use ropes and stuff to do this, it's going to be a little sketchier. This is where we're getting some training. You give the plug, you go to the mountain school, comes in, go to RTEC. That'll definitely help smooth out the process. And training this, if you're working in these environments, actually train realistic CASEVAC. It's CASEVAC in the new world, where, the Army has especially conventional Army, has a great ability to train for the war that we just fought, not the war we're going to fight. And I still see that when I train other DoD guys. Like, we're training off Afghan stuff, like, which was a developed theater. It was better than most places. Like, right now we're in rural Vermont doing this. I stood a better chance of surviving losing a leg in Afghanistan than I would if I lopped the leg off with a chainsaw in my backyard. I would probably bleed out on the way to the hospital, if I even got to the hospital here. We were evacing people, and they were under the knife of a surgical team in 45 minutes in Afghanistan. So, like, that is an unlikely scenario for moving forward. So train your evac plans. It's too easy, and as a medic, especially younger medics, you just get handed your evac plan, and, rightfully so sometimes, because you don't know what you're doing. But force the rehearsals of that, right? Because a lot of times that will drive the mission plan to a point. I don't know which one you helped us with the Sort A. Was it one of the first ones we did, or was it?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, I do know one of the ones we did. They were given a mission requirement of a specific distance, and I cut it in half, and they were unable to complete it. And we talked to them later. I knew they weren't going to complete it. Like, it's just, you've been doing it long enough. But that allowed them to temper and change their mission profiles. to better fit what they was. So instead of a whatever mile offset that they would hang out at, they cut that in half. So put them closer to the threat, but they just brought extra security because they knew that this was much harder. Like, that was feedback I got from the teams when they were coming back from their rotations. So if you actually train them, you can find those weak spots. If you've never actually train your evac plan for real, not just like, oh, they're hurt, we put them on a litter and we carry them a little bit, everyone gets sweaty, and then the helicopter comes, you know, that's doing a disservice to yourself and your patient. Like, train it. Be like, hey, on our average evac distance, so this is a 6-hour hike in, or 6 mile. So your evac distance should be minimum 6 miles.
Yep.
Like, if you can't move a patient 6 miles, well, figure something out. Like, you're going to do the mission regardless. Maybe be safer. You know, change who you're taking, lighten loads, do anything you can to prevent those injuries from happening. But if you're not practicing that real evac, you're not going to know until it's for real. Yep. You know, and that's the worst time to figure it out.
Okay, so finally, do you see any gaps currently in Army medical training related to mountains?
So, Army Base 68 Whiskey Training does an amazing job of turning out technicians for trauma. That was one of the big ones that I pushed when I was running the RTAC, and I'm still trying to help fix it. But what it doesn't do is prepare soldiers for the 90 percentile. That might be, it's more like 95 percentile of injuries and requirements, right? Because we train our soldiers to handle a polytrauma patient, so a multi-trauma patient that is an exceptionally complex patient, and they do it. And a lot of times it's kind of like the scene out of Old School. They don't know what just happened. They just kind of like blacked out for a second, and then like there's tourniquets, there may be a needle decompression going on, and the casualty feeder card's filled out. And they're like, well, I don't know why I did those things. They just happen. And it's amazing. But it's a really small part of the injuries you're likely to do. And being a good medic has a lot to do with like how you can care for your platoon and prevent a lot of stuff. And a lot of the mountain injuries, again, it's ACLs, knees, backs, knowing basic sports medicine, all of those things, they don't teach you. Knowing how to splint and knowing the difference between when a tourniquet's needed and when it's not. So one of the hardest parts to get across to the Army, to leadership, and even to medics themselves, every other MOS you graduate and you're pretty damn good at your job. Right? Pretty damn good. There's not a huge progression you can go on the 11 Bravo side to become better, right? It's about mastering the basics. Being a good medic is about mastering the basics. It's just that our basics are much larger, right? So I tell everyone, and that's how I approached every day, is your graduation was you getting to the starting line of your education. If you're not doing anything to move it forward, then you're failing your soldiers. And like I approached every day again with the idea of looking around, you will be, or I could be, the difference between one of those people going home to their family or not, right? Because it's all cool and good, you know, being like that. I'm just a line medic guy until someone needs you and you fold, right? Because we're only called to do our job when it's the absolute worst, right? Like that's when everything else has gone wrong. They're all going to be like, hey, doc's got this. And then they're just going to step away and you're going to be alone with that patient. So making sure you are treating every day, every training opportunity like that, because that's how it's going to be, I think is one of the big ones. And then pick up all of that other stuff, right? Go to the clinic and talk to your doctors. You know, it doesn't matter. You can learn something from everything. Like so this is dating myself. When we were in Afghanistan, I had 4 different docs that I worked under. And I mean, one of them was a dermatologist. Great lady. Didn't know a lot about trauma, so it wasn't super useful. But I learned a lot about dermatology, right? That stuff that I didn't know. So I took something from it. She was stressful in a lot of other ways. No big deal. Had an anesthesiologist. Learned more about medications and drugs and pain management than I think I ever have, right? Had some great PAs that did a lot of orthopedics, a lot of stuff. You can pick something from everyone and learn those things. and also understand that you're still at the starting line. Like, it's been 2008, I think I reclassed. And before that, I was an EMT before that. But I feel like I don't know any more than the day I started. I mean, I'm a paramedic, I'm a diploma in mountain medicine, I'm a fellow of the Academy of Wilderness Mountain Medicine, I'm a certified wilderness paramedic certified under the International Board, whatever, and a whole bunch of other things. And it's all because I don't want to look down at a patient and be like, I don't really know what to do. Right? And you're going to have those moments. I did, and I still do. You're like, fuck. That was like the page I skipped when I was reading. Or that was the section of that lecture I fast-forwarded through. And, again, you roll back to the basics. So if you master your basics, you can carry a lot through the more advanced stuff. But having the humility to be like, I got to learn this. And knowing that you're not there. And what that really means, and it's unfortunate for the medics, is you don't get downtime. Like, you come off mission, all 11 Bravos clean their rifles, go to the gym, maybe. Most of the time they eat snacks. And that's it. I would pull my guys in and be like, we're going to go to the aid station. Go practice clinical medicine. And there's all those people, the medics that always say, and this bothers me to this day, oh, I'm a line medic. That's kind of like saying you're street smart, so you're stupid outside, right? If you're not working in the clinic, you're not learning real medicine, because that's the 90 percentile. Do you want to be able to say, hey, this is why you're having back pain. The PA has helped me out. He understands I know how to give this medication, so now I can. And you've just fixed a soldier, right? You've put him back into the fight, because the Med Corps is supposed to preserve the fighting strength. So, but you wouldn't learn that otherwise. You could sit there and brag about how awesome you are at putting tourniquets on while your guys are getting, foot rot, back pain, muscle pain, not eating right. All of the other things, you're a terrible medic, right? So make sure you are learning. And this also comes down to not just the medic himself, it's the leadership. Like, I understand that sometimes you're not going to have us around, right? One of my biggest heartaches before I got out was like ranges, right? Got to have a medic at a range. It lowers the risk assessment. No one has actually explained to me how having a medic lowers risk assessment. It improves outcome, but it doesn't stop the risk of something happening, which is what the risk assessment's for. Right? And if you actually read the range, most range controls lay out what they need. Right? Like, for most ranges, combat lifesaver suffices. If you're doing some wacky shit like maneuver stuff, then they probably want a medic. And that's really about it. It normally doesn't go much higher. But understanding those requirements so the medic can get training, right? Not in just what his job is to be attached to said element, because he needs to be trained in that as well, but also so he can go do his job, right? Because sitting in an ambulance isn't being a medic. That's being, someone holding the seat down, right? Like, there's 100 homeless people that live in their cars. Like, we don't need medics to do that. You're not learning anything, right? So make sure you're getting out there and you're engaging with it. So that's a leadership thing. It's not just the medics, because these are E4s, maybe. So it's like the squad leader and the platoon sergeants, and hopefully their platoon, the medical platoon sergeant as well. But that's a shitty job. Like, I had it, I wasn't good at it, because you have 40 people that you never see. Like, they're gone. Like, you meet them like twice, and so like you check in on them every now and then, and that's it. And you just hope everything's working out. So making sure you're always doing that education. Be reading, be understanding, because a lot of what we do is very cerebral. So you can have books, there's apps on everything now. Like, I have them loaded on my phone. I read, like, I work as a paramedic before I go on shift. I show up, get dressed, do my rig check, and then I sit down and I go through like the top 3 in my head where my weaknesses are for protocols. So I read all my cardiology protocols over and over again to make sure that I can understand those. If I'm working someplace where I know I'm going to be seeing more trauma, I'll push that to the front. But again, it's about just having the humility to be like, yeah, man, like, I'm not super good at this because I don't see it all the time, right? So that's a really important part. Like, medics need to continually grow. If they don't, then they're just going to be kind of like an EMT. And there's a big difference between just being like that guy and then actually being a platoon medic. Because like, you really get that title doc when you can take care of people's like infected wounds, sore backs, hurt feet, STDs, like you name it, right? Suture stuff closed because they were stupid. But all of those skills are learned working in your aid station, and like you won't get that at 68 Whiskey School. 68 Whiskey School teaches you how to make sure someone doesn't die. That's it.
Okay, yeah, well, that's good advice. You've been on a couple other podcasts. You do your own YouTube and other trainings, and
I do all kinds of stuff.
I saw that you were just at Randall's Island too, teaching FDNY.
Yeah, so I teach FDNY. So that's I'm going down. I'm teaching trauma medicine for someplace in Boston. I don't know. I'd have to look at my calendar. No, I haven't really slowed down any with retirement. Actually, I think I've picked up the pace because I don't have to ask anyone's permission anymore. Yeah. But I mean, now all the leadership doesn't have all the bullets they could brief now. So I guess I can just be happy that I'm doing things to help people.
So where can people find you if they want to reach out and try to get you for some training?
I don't have a training company. World Extreme Medicine is the one I work through right now. Mm-hmm. Go to the mountain school, hit up RTech. I think it's a good one. I built the program. I helped build it. I took what was given to me by my mentors, and I hope I improved it. And I handed it off to good people, so I know they're improving it. That's a good military spot. That's a good start. Look at the Wilderness Medical Society. They publish practicing guidelines, and the upside of the Wilderness Medical Society is they're tied right in with the Special Operations Medical Association, so the Journal of Special Operations Medicine, who publishes like the Ranger Medic handbooks and all that, and they kind of work, and I'm members of both, and the information is cross-pollinated, so it's really easy to do, and those are great resources, and it's all free. You can just download it right onto your tablet. They're PDFs, so you can print them, shrink them, whatever. Always understand, like that's one of the hardest ones. It was hard for me. Like I graduated paramedic school. For about 3 months, I thought I was a moron. I just was done from schooling, and then you get like you get overconfident in your skills, and then you have a close call, and it's that I can't remember what the hell the hierarchy is called, but like that's what we do in medicine. It's very sharp, and you're always going to be going up and down, but settling into those ups and downs. So enjoy the times when you're like, wow, holy crap, I'm on my game, but with the understanding that there's going to be a bottom. But when you're in those bottoms, enjoy them, because now it's a chance to learn and improve. And there's so much out there now. Like it was a lot harder when I started because you could only go to courses. Now there's all the digital learning and all that. World Extreme Medicine, I guess, to answer your question, other than rambling there, they're the ones I teach for now. Okay. So, and that's their webpage just went live with some of the courses we're running. And we're going to be filling out a whole bunch more on that, I believe. But I don't know exactly. And then, let's see, Alpha Point is the company, Tactical Medicine I work for. You can't really buy our stuff. You can buy it from Safeguard Medicine. And it's, standard tourniquets, splinting stuff. That's some stuff we've made improvements on to work with cold weather clothing and that kind of stuff. But, that's all coming down the line.
After listening to Jeremy talk, there were some things that I wanted to highlight. At the end, if you didn't notice, he referenced the Dunning-Kruger effect. If you don't know what that is, now you know what to look up. And whether it's 100% true or not, it's a good reminder to always be seeking more knowledge and training. Even doing this as long as he has, there was some stuff that I asked him that he said it could go either way, which surprised me for how long he's been doing this. We talked about physical fitness, and remember, medics are there to be assets. So if you can't keep up with whatever physical demands your unit has, you're now a liability to take out on a patrol and are taking away from, not adding to, the capabilities of whoever you're working with. And the last thing we talked about was sending your 68 Whiskey medics to go learn something from clinics and aid stations that might not exactly be their responsibility in garrison, but in the field or separated from higher care, the 68 Whiskey might be all the platoon has. So if the opportunity comes for them to learn more about prolonged field care or athletic injuries or dermatology or field sanitation or anything other than sitting in a Humvee being a range medic, send them. If you're the 68 Whiskey, search those opportunities and advocate for why it would be beneficial for you to know those things. The Kabul airport comes to mind, where soldiers, Marines, whoever flew into the airport with nothing but a rucksack. Pack for a month, you'll have what you have. How do you treat diarrhea, infections? By the way, how do you care for babies? Oh, I don't know, I'm just a 68 whiskey. Well, I'm a 19-year-old tow gunner, so you tell me. I can't Google it, there's no electricity or cell reception. Right? Expand that out to other skills, not just 68 whiskeys. Once people are comfortable in their assigned jobs, go learn other things. How does this generator work? How do I fly that Raven? How do I fill that radio? People love to show off what they do, so don't be afraid to approach someone and ask them, how could I do your job or an aspect of your job if you're not here? Those are the things that really stood out to me. It gave me a lot to think about. Let me know what you guys think, what stood out to you, and did you gain a different perspective on anything? Thanks for listening.